I want to lighten things up a little bit. You know, we're dealing with some dark subjects, and we got a really dark subject in a bit. But let's start with something that's going to give everybody a good laugh. Here we go from The Guardian. Twitter sued for disproportionately firing female workers after Musk buyout. The proposed class action lawsuit alleges that after the takeover, 57% of women were laid off compared with 47% of men. The reason why I say that's funny is because there's that meme where Elon Musk, he did this. He sent out an email saying, will you make the pledge to work hard, yes or no? If no, you will be laid off and get 3-month severance. And then this data comes out where they're like 57% of the people who got laid off were women. So first, I understand Elon Musk did lay off a bunch of people immediately without question, but then he came back with that who wants to work hard and who doesn't. So you've got a few things here. Is it that 10% proportionally more women were like, I would not want to work hard? There's an article from the Washington Post that says Elon Musk's vision of working late hours at the cost of sleep, family, and friends is retrograde. And it's like written by a woman. And I'm just kind of like, you know, the idea of working 16 hours a day at the cost of all of those things is appealing to me. Is there something where there's like a difference between men and women on this one? We know that women tend to be subject oriented, men tend to be object oriented. Is that the cause of this? Or is there just a simple, there were more women working in comms and more comms people got fired? There were more men working in engineering, so less of them got fired or something like that? It's that meme, you know what I mean? Where before Twitter, it's all women, and then after, it's all men. Or do you guys think Elon's sexist?
What do you think?
I don't have a funny answer to it, but I would probably just say that 57% or a good percentage maybe cared about that they had that disamplification or disenhancement. You know, they were taking away visibility from people that they didn't agree with, and they simply were just saying, okay, if Elon's going to take over and if he's not going to censor these beliefs that we don't agree with, I don't want to work for that company.
And it's not that big of a margin. No. What is it, 57%? I mean, how do you quantify that, especially when it's, you know, a few hundred people? What was it, a few thousand people?
Well, I mean, here's the issue too. There were more men working for the company than women, so this means more men got fired than women. But when you compare only men to men and women to women, then the percentages make it seem like more women got fired.
Yeah, this feels like it's just a frivolous lawsuit meant to entangle Elon Musk and to stop him from doing other things and to drain away his resources. That's just my initial reaction to this. I could be wrong, but I highly doubt a lot of the decisions were based off sexist decisions by Elon Musk. To me, there's no evidence showing that at all, and it's a ridiculous claim in my opinion.
Yeah, I find, I don't know, there's a tendency for men to be more obsessed with science, tech, and things, and women to be more obsessed with people and like things like that.
Especially when it comes to coding, especially when it comes to developing,
sitting in a room
building
for 16 hours without a shower and stinking I'm okay with it. I do that almost every day. In fact, I like it. But most women I know like to be clean, especially because they need to be clean for health reasons, cleaner than men.
Well, it's not just that, but predominantly men like to, of course, be engineers, like to build and develop. Women like to organize. Women like to keep things orderly. Not always, but more generally speaking, that's the case here. And when we look at the jobs at Twitter, they're going to be not doing what they did before. They're going to be developing essentially what is the next WeChat here in the United States and encompassing everyday life, which is going to include a lot of coding, a lot of hard engineering work in order to develop the app of everything, the X app, as Elon Musk has called it. So that's not going to attract a lot of people who aren't going to be able to tell people what to say and what to think and to shadow ban them because they can't do that anymore.
I think there was a lot of administrative bloat at Twitter, a bunch of middle management, and maybe there were more women in middle management. Maybe there were more guys.
I mean, we saw the videos. They're like, "Oh yeah, we got free wine.
I know.
We're gonna go on the roof and we're gonna hang out." Elon came in and like, "No, if you have stop that right now." And then obviously,
it's so retrograde. I want wine and Legos.
Yeah.
I guess it depends on what you want to do with your tech company, but I find like you want about 90% of your employees to be programmers. I don't know, maybe that's a little off base. I haven't only run one tech company. I didn't really run it myself. I helped run it.
But remember, what was it? Polly Pocket? You remember that thing?
Yeah.
What was the dude version? Max something?
Mighty Max.
Mighty Max? Was that what it was?
I was all about it.
Yeah, and it was like you had a little thing and you'd open it and you had a little guy you move, and then the girl version was the Polly Pocket. You know, maybe I'll throw a bone to the left. Millennials were socialized very, very differently. Young women play with different toys than young boys, and that leads them to be very different when they're older. That's going to have an impact on how people want to work in their jobs, the way they're raised. That I will say outright. So at the very least, that could be the case. I'll also say one of the tricks that the left uses is they turn the obvious and overt differences between men and women into racism, misogyny, discrimination, etc. Or I should say, in this instance, misogyny turn into sexism. If women need more sick days than men for, health reasons, you will then see, if you look at, I'd be willing to bet, but I could be wrong. And I'm interested to see, do women take off more sick leave than men? What do you guys think?
More time. I would imagine just if raising families is involved, but that's not super common.
No, sick leave.
Just take days
Getting
off.
sick and having a hard time working. Do you think men or women more likely to? I don't know for sure, but my personal view is like I bet women would, because women have health issues, and I got no issue with that. But imagine if I then went into the directory and said, for some reason, all of these women are abusing the healthcare system. Certainly, it's what's going on, right? Men and women are different. The genders are bimodal. It means there's two big bell curves. They overlap greatly, but there are some differences. If this means that women overwhelmingly work in comms and men overwhelmingly work in engineering, then when the layoffs come and they say we're laying off communications and it disproportionately affects women, they then ignore that fact of the differences between men and women and say, the fact that he fired more women proves that he's a sexist and it's illegal discrimination.
But in reality, you don't need a huge bloated comms unit in a tech company. I don't think so. They are obviously, I guess when you get to the level that Twitter's at, you become a bit more of a communications department than you are when you're a startup tech platform, because the government wants to come talk to people and have departments of people that are doing communications and stuff. So maybe I could see that changing, but for the benefit of the good of the future of the network, I don't think you need massive comms.
I was right. According to the Department of Labor, women take around 32 days, I think, is per year, and men take 25.
Huh. They got ovaries.
Yeah.
Well, quite frankly, from the very people that have been censoring us, and there was no rationale behind it, there was no policy that actually, said that's what we were doing. I have trouble believing the very people that were lying about the reasons why we were censored in the first place, that they are being discriminated against to begin with. And quite frankly, I mean, I don't think I have sympathy for them. It's kind of like when CNN is laying off people. Certainly, I don't want anybody to be out of a job and not be able to provide for their family. But it's like, if you've been maligning us and doing horrible things to us, I'm not sure I have sympathy for you when you are losing your job.
I got more data. In terms of general leave, just not even sick, women take, 34 days versus men's 21 days. That's interesting.
It's like twice as much.
And it says primarily they take longer leaves for a new child. Women take 54 days versus men taking 18. But I totally get it. Like, I don't expect a guy to take 54 days. He didn't birth this child. I think women deserve that time off. I think men should get a good amount of time off to be with their kids. Don't get me wrong. But I mean, that's just biological differences. It's going to manifest in various ways. They want more time off. What if Elon went in and said, fire anybody who took more than 30 days off this year? He didn't say anything about women, but that would get rid of more women than men, right?
Are these full-time employees? I see down here at the bottom it says 3,700. Are these full-time employees? Are these people that are working 1 day a week? I'd be curious to see those numbers. I don't know if they have them, but
I think a lot of people were considered full-time, but were remoting in and were like, just doing bare minimum. And that's part of Elon's issue with it. It blows my mind to think that if an owner of a company comes in and is like, someone's doing a bad job, like, you're doing a bad job, I've given you some warnings, you're fired. And they're like, you're firing me because I'm white. I'm like, no, I'm firing you because you suck. Get out. No, it's because I'm tall. You're firing me because I'm a woman, because I'm black. Like, dude, you suck at your job. Get out. End of story. Why do you get to pick social politics and bring that into it? I don't get it.
Well, the woke people live in this world where everything is based on race or identity.
It's just such a cop-out.
Instead of looking at the data and being like, I wonder why more women take time off. Nope, it's discrimination.
I bet there are situations where it's not a cop-out, so I shouldn't speak for all time. But there are many, many times when I think the worst people will get fired, and it has nothing to do with your identity. It's purely because of your ability. or because your position isn't needed anymore. You know, you got to be so good that the company needs you. You got to make your position so valuable that the company can't run without it. I mean, that's one way to do it.
The left wants companies to keep on bad employees because of the employee's identity. That just doesn't work.
Looks good on paper.
Yeah, well, you know, and then you get bridges that collapse and stuff like that.
You should see the laws that they have in California when it comes to boards and their regulations there, which is, again, absolutely insane. But, you know, there's a lot of data suggesting that, you know, men do work more days in a year on average than women do. Does this have an effect here? Maybe. I think so.
I think this cycle has happened a lot in history. And what I don't want to happen is for it to become where people resent, let's pick women, for instance, or some sort of class of human, a female, white, black, you know, whatever, that people, because the companies start to suffer because they're forced to have a certain amount of women and a certain amount of men, and maybe it doesn't matter their qualifications, that people will start to resent those people, those underqualified people that got the position on identity. And then if the system really falls apart, there's going to be massive amounts of resentment. And then you'll start over with this really like extreme system where people are like, women. People have actually joked about repealing the 19th Amendment because they're so frustrated with this stuff.
Wait. What do you mean joked?
Yeah, exactly. It's not even, some people haven't even joked. They just say maybe we should strip women's right to vote because they're so pissed off that women are being forced into positions they're not qualified for identity purposes.
What is a woman, Ian?
Good question, Tim. Good question.
So I tweeted that now that we know that biological sex isn't real, we should repeal the 19th Amendment because it's become redundant. Right?
I'm telling you.
Well, why would you need it if biological sex isn't real? The 19th Amendment specifically says the right to vote shall not be abridged or whatever the word is. So you can't. It says sex, specifically says sex, that the right to vote will not be stopped because of your sex. But if the left's position is that biological sex doesn't exist anymore, well, then we don't need the 19th Amendment. Everybody agrees. No, seriously. That's the first question I have. You go to conservatives like, you know, Milo or whatever. He says outright, you know, repeal the 19th. Lydia, she says repeal the 19th. And it's like, okay, well, you know, like I personally don't agree with that, but I'm also not somebody who thinks biological sex doesn't exist. I think it does. So then fine. Here's my pitch to Milo and to Lydia. Go to leftists and say, is biological sex a real thing? When they say no, be like, okay, would you like to sign this petition to repeal the 19th Amendment, which specifically grants voting rights based on sex? That's transphobic, isn't it? Okay, great. Then when they sign it, there you go. Get your petitions, get your two-thirds of states, Article 5 convention or whatever, and then you can repeal the 19th.
But the reality is men and women are different. Women have ovaries, genetically, sexually are different creations. You know, maybe gender is a conversation is worth having, that people have different, you know, gender identities, whatever. But biological sex is very real. It's very real. We were all born of a woman. As far as I know, all of us here probably were. You guys? I was. Had a mom and a dad, sperm and an egg, female and a male. They work together.
You sound like a bigot. How dare you express these opinions? I mean, I have to disavow immediately. Scott, do you disavow Ian?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Not.
Yes. Okay, good.
I think a lot of times personalities get labeled as gender identities too. And it's just like people are different. Men and women are different. People are different. We all come from different backgrounds, different cultures. And there's too often people are trying to put you in a little box, say this is what you are. And it's just like, be an individual, you know?
Dude, that's awesome. Thinking of it as a personality trait difference instead of a gender difference. It doesn't have to be gender just because your personality feels like something.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
Well, it's just so ironic, you know, because they're looking for these immutable characteristics as diversity, but they won't include diversity of thought, of ideology, of religion.
That's too much. That's too much. We got to keep it superficial here, you know.
So they took the video down. It was a debate between Jordan Peterson and this professor. The video is now unavailable, but the quote was, basically, it's not correct that there is such a thing as biological sex. He said, I'm a historian of medicine. I can break that down in great detail, but for the purpose, sake of time, I won't. And it was Jordan Peterson having a debate on gender. So, and this is 2016. If that's the position they want to take, I mean, man, this is 6 years ago. 6 years ago. This is a long time. That means a 12-year-old who was not paying attention to politics back then is voting now. That's crazy. And they don't think that biological sex exists. All right, well, then the 19th Amendment doesn't need to exist either.
I think it's okay that biological sex exists. It's so weird when people conflate sex and gender, too. I don't like that. the sex thing is just blatantly real. Sex is real. Like man and woman are both here together.
I gotta say though, I don't see how they argue themselves away from that one. The 19th Amendment explicitly says on the basis of sex. If they don't think it exists, then what is the basis for the 19th Amendment? Simply put, ask them. Ask your lefty friends calmly. And do you think we should have a 19th Amendment? Yeah, the one that, you know what that does? It affirms in the Constitution that biological sex is real. That's transphobic, right? Well, then we got to get rid of it.
It doesn't necessarily affirm, because there could be 0 women and the 19th Amendment could still be there. It just wouldn't be affecting anyone. So what that could be a situation where they're like, hey, there are no sexes, so let's repeal the redundancy. And then all of a sudden they're like, actually, there are sexes. You guys are gonna have to work to get an amendment in the Constitution to get to vote again. Like, no. Everyone's able to vote now. That's
hey, look, if they want to remove their own right to vote, then people can vote away their right to vote, I guess. Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.